Good afternoon. Game day, massive weekend of football. Lots to discuss on today's podcast. Thanks for joining us. In particular, want to discuss exactly who the Bombers are chasing. They're active. Jake Niall with an interesting article in The Age today. Want to discuss that shortly. Also, how the AFL is now trying to rescue Tasmania's bid for an AFL team. They've dispatched 2 executives. We'll have those details shortly. And also explain how the whole thing now could indeed fall over. Want to discuss a COVID potential game changer ahead of the finals, and also a surprise injury, or at least it sneaked under my radar, to a star Tiger who's just been dealing with this injury all throughout the season, and I don't think it's gone noticed. So I want to discuss that as well as a massive weekend preview of all the huge games, some absolute beauties. Anyway, off the top today, want to discuss the Bombers. Jake Niall's reported accurately, when I say accurately because I know trade stories get all sorts of commentary. Jake Niall's stories are always right, but as a general rule. But Jake Niall's reported today that Angus Brayshaw has met with the Bombers. Now, it's interesting. It's understood that he met with Josh Marnie, who's the football manager, as well as the Truck, Ben Rutten. Joke at Essendon, I call him the Truck. Apparently his nickname's Truck, I call him the Truck. Anyway, I digress. Brayshaw met with the Truck and as well as Josh Marnie. Now, I've reported that Geelong is interested in Brayshaw. Obviously, there's significant interest from the Western Australian clubs, in particular Fremantle. There's no guarantee he'll leave Melbourne, although it's looking, as days go by, increasingly likely, because it looks like he wants a spot in the midfield as opposed to the halfback flank or the wing, and perhaps even a change of scenery. We don't know the reasons yet, but Brayshaw certainly, as he's entitled to do, exploring his options. Now, in terms of who else the Bombers are chasing, I think it's widely now accepted they're certainly interested in Rankin. That's Isaac Rankin from the Gold Coast, who remains unsigned. So the Bombers certainly active in that space. It's my firm understanding today that they're not chasing Bedford. They've got the Davey twins coming through, and they're not into another young Melbourne player in Toby Bedford, but they are certainly into Brayshaw and also Rankin, which is interesting. The Bombers have salary space and have now recorded 3 wins in a row, have a huge clash against Collingwood on Sunday, but have met with Angus Brayshaw as per the Age article today, which just demonstrates that they're certainly very, very active in that free agency space. Moving to Tasmania, the vote, which is slated or projected now for late August, there's a danger that this vote won't go ahead. The AFL's made it clear to Tasmania they have to include a stadium as part of their proposal, a detailed one. I discussed that yesterday, and a number of clubs that I speak to are not interested in a promised stadium or a mooted stadium or a stadium written up on the back of a piece of paper when they go to vote in late August. They want detailed, fully funded plans. I'll get to the difficulty with the stadium shortly. A lot of clubs now are concerned they won't have enough time to properly consider Tasmania's proposal for a dedicated team by late August. They haven't got any of the financials yet. They haven't got any of the details. And already a club that I've spoken to want to put this to their board. It's not just for the president to decide when it's sprung on them in some meeting. They want to put it to their board and their key stakeholders, even sponsors, on what the club's position is. They might canvass the opinion of the players or their fans. So a number of clubs want to have more time now to consider this issue and haven't got any information as yet. The AFL is trying to help Tasmania. The AFL today has sent down, as I reported last night, Matthew Chun, who's the he's a facilities guy, basically. He's like an infrastructure guru at the airport, at the AFL. He's got a property development background. He basically sort of like the brains behind Marvel Stadium. They've sent down Matthew as well as Travis Old to Tasmania to look at 5 or 6 sites in regards to a stadium. That's the AFL trying to assist Tasmania, which is great. But this idea that now in the space of 2 or 3 weeks they could come up with a detailed enough proposal to put to the president for a stadium that's funded with all the plans and a location, it's clearly not going to be particularly advanced, given the fact they're now still looking at sites with 2 or 3 weeks to go. And this whole bid, and I don't gleefully say this for anyone that sort of criticises me in regards to my reporting around Tasmania, this bid has descended into a bit of a farce in a way, from what we can tell. So there's a lot to do. The AFL's trying to help, but clubs now worried they want to put this information to their boards and won't have enough time, and they're not interested in the promise of a stadium. There's plenty of time to approve this when it's all lined up next year, a couple of clubs tell me, and they're happy to look at it when all the ducks are lined up and all the facts are on the table. It's looking increasingly unlikely that all the facts will be on the table by late August, and there's some real concern amongst a number of clubs now that this vote won't be in a fit and proper state to even go ahead. COVID is a bit of a bore. I know we're all trying to deal with it in our daily lives, but a potential game changer ahead of the finals, which I do find interesting. Clubs are keenly anticipating and watching the government now if the 7 days is reduced to 5 days of isolation. Now, that's out of my realm. I'm not an expert on that area. Government people or government reporters that I speak to tell me that could possibly change by the end of August, which would coincide with the start of the finals and would mean that we'd have a number of situations where if a player gets diagnosed on a Sunday, Monday or Tuesday, they could still play the following round and might not miss a round of football. So hopefully, if that happens, it would be a positive impact on the finals in terms of less players missing games because of COVID if the government reduced the isolation period from 7 to 5 days, which is possible by the end of August. Friday night football doesn't get any bigger tonight. Richmond against Fremantle. Richmond in 8th, desperate for a win. Fremantle really locked in that battle for that top 4. Lob a massive out for Fremantle. In terms of the ladder, well, Fremantle's locked in that battle, obviously, with the Lions, the Dockers, and Collingwood, which is 3rd through 5th. So it's absolutely vital as far as the top 5 is concerned. So there'll be a lot of Lions fans, but in particular, Collingwood fans keeping a close eye on the result tonight. I ran into Tom Lynch, who, of course, isn't playing tonight. Yesterday, he'll do a session on his hamstring tomorrow. He's edging back, hoping to play the following week. He's got an interesting injury, which has sort of slipped below my radar. It was widely reported that he had those finger injuries in and around the hub. He flew on the special flight up to the hub one night, the charter flight, having had surgery on his finger. He showed me his right middle finger yesterday. He basically constantly goes around with an extended right middle finger, which some people would say is rude. It's not rude. It's actually fused. He's had that fused. He's got a plate and screws in it, and that actually doesn't move. And he showed me that yesterday. So next time you watch Tom Lynch play in the Tigers, have a look at that. I think Luke Hodge ended up with that situation towards the end of his career as well. Look, it's fairly commonplace. I can't imagine it hinders you too much. It'd hinder you playing golf, but look, it wouldn't help as a key forward, but clearly he can deal with it. But he showed me that yesterday, and look, it didn't look painful, but it looked pretty rigid. It's straight. His right middle finger, Tom Lynch, the star Richmond forward. And I'll run through some of the ins and outs this weekend, just talk about some footy, a massive round of football. Mention the significance of Richmond and Fremantle tonight at Marvel. North and Hawthorn tomorrow. Hawthorn, Jack Gunston has elected to play just a couple of weeks after the very sad passing of his dad, Ray, who had a great send-off, I'm told, in terms of his service last Friday. A number of people a huge turnout from the AFL community went to Ray Gunston's funeral last Friday. Jack has elected to play bravely this weekend, which is great for Jack. I hope he goes really well. Sydney and Adelaide, hugely important for the Swans in particular. Port and Geelong, that'll be an interesting one, hugely significant for Port if they're any chance still of making the 8. The Lions and Gold Coast is an interesting one. The Lions have a number of massive names back in the side, including Zorko, Rich, Adams, Berry and McInerney. So some significant changes there as far as the Lions and big ins as far as they're concerned. The Western Bulldogs and Melbourne, that's an awesome clash. Now, it's interesting for the Western Bulldogs. Norton is back. Hunter is not back from his COVID. As far as Melbourne's concerned, Clayton Oliver is a huge in. So that's going to be an absolute beauty. Marvel Stadium Saturday night, which will be awesome. Carlton and the Giants. Carlton's got a big out. Hewitt, back soreness. Another significant game, I think, for the Giants. I don't think McVeigh will get that job now off the back of a couple of disappointing performances. It'll be interesting to see how the Giants go. Hugely important for the Blues, who still are pressing for a top 4 spot. Collingwood and Essendon, massive on Sunday. Huge for Collingwood's top 4 chances. They get back Quaynor and Adams. Grundy didn't get up. Collingwood wanted Grundy to have a dedicated full game back, obviously in the twos ideally, before he plays in the seniors. He's just underdone. Unfortunately, there's no VFL game this weekend, which just complicates things a little bit as well in terms of when he will be back. But Grundy, they didn't. They just resisted that temptation. In terms of their instructions to Ginnivan this weekend, Craig McRae was clever yesterday. Rather than telling Ginnivan to either keep ducking and keep doing what he's doing, which could result in goals, or to stop ducking and just stand up in the tackle, he actually said McRae's half a genius. He said he should just handball more, give it off to his teammates. He might have missed a few opportunities in recent weeks, and he thinks that's an area of the game that Ginnivan could improve. I like that solution. West Coast and St Kilda to conclude the round at Optus on Sunday. Brett Ratton's made a massive statement, dropping Zach Jones after giving him a fair bake post-game last week. I guess there'll be some debate as to whether that's the correct approach, but Rats was, look, he's promised a few players are on basically now their last chance, certainly from a selection perspective, and he's made an example out of Jones this weekend. Hunter Clark back in the side. That wraps up a big Friday podcast. Thanks so much for joining us today, and hopefully all week. I'll be back on Monday, Thursday and Friday next week. Triple M rocks football.